Welcome to Restoria. I'm Jenna, and this is your cozy corner for gentle bedtime stories. Each night, I'll share peaceful tales made to quiet your thoughts and guide you softly into sleep. So settle in, get comfy, and let the story carry you into rest. The story tonight is called Slow Morning Farm, Chapter 1. The first morning, before the sun fully climbs the sky, Slow Morning Farm is already gently breathing. The hills are still draped in that early grey-blue light, soft as flannel. The grass glistens with dew, each blade tipped in silver. In the distance, the wind stirs the tops of the trees, not loud, just enough to be known. Ellie wakes to the sound of a kettle beginning to hum downstairs. She stretches under the quilt, warm and heavy, the kind that smells faintly of cedar and line-dried cotton. Her room is small, just enough space for a bed, a bookshelf, and a window that looks out onto the barn. She wraps herself in a cardigan, pulls on thick socks, and pads softly down the old stairs. Each step creaks like it remembers every footfall before her. The kitchen is already warm. Her grandmother stands at the counter, slicing bread with slow, practiced hands. The radio plays something old and low. The kettle lets out a long sigh of steam. "Morning, love," her grandmother says, without turning. "Go ahead and get the girls." Ellie nods, ties an apron around her waist, and steps outside. The morning meets her like a hush. Out past the porch, the world is soft and waking. The coop stands beneath a willow tree, its wooden door slightly damp with dew. She unlatches it gently. Inside, the hens blink up at her. Round and fluffy, they murmur as they hop from their perches, landing with a soft thud in the straw. "Good morning, sleepy girls," Ellie whispers, tossing grain across the floor. The feed scatters with a soft patter. Tiny pecks follow, like fingers tapping lightly on wood. In the nesting box, 3 warm eggs. Ellie lifts them one by one, careful, her fingers curling around their smooth, cool shells. She places them gently into the folds of her apron. Past the coop, Mabel waits. The cow lifts her head as Ellie approaches, eyes slow and kind. Ellie scratches behind her ear. "Hey, girl." She refills the water trough, watches it ripple as it fills. Mabel chews her hay thoughtfully, one ear flicking now and then. In the garden, everything smells like mint and wet earth. Ellie runs her hand along the tops of the beans, leans down to sniff the strawberries. A bee buzzes past lazily. A wind chime rings once a single hollow note. She stands still, lets it all settle, then she walks back toward the kitchen. Her grandmother has set the table, 2 plates, a small dish of butter, a pot of tea in a cozy. Ellie sets the eggs in a bowl on the counter. Her grandmother cracks them one by one into the pan, stirring slowly. They eat in silence, soft eggs with chives, toast still warm, tea that tastes faintly of lemon balm. Outside, the sun begins to stretch over the hills. Slow morning farm leans into the day with no hurry, and Ellie, still barefoot, still wrapped in her cardigan, feels something inside her loosen. Not everything needs to begin fast. Some mornings you wake up, you care for small things, you eat something warm, and that's enough. Chapter 2. Small chores, soft hours. After breakfast, the plates are rinsed and stacked in the drying rack. The kitchen window is open just enough to let in the breeze. Outside, the light has shifted, not bright, just clear, like a clean page waiting for ink. Ellie stands at the sink for a moment, hands damp, looking out across the yard. Mabel is lying in a patch of sun. The hens are back to scratching under the willow. She dries her hands on the apron and pulls on her boots. The list of chores is handwritten on a notepad by the door. Water the garden, sweep the barn aisle, check the fence posts. Nothing urgent, just the kind of tasks that fill the day without stealing it. She begins in the garden, where the soil still holds the coolness of morning. She waters the tomatoes slowly, the way her grandfather once taught her. Let the water soak where the roots can drink it best, he used to say. His hands always careful, even when his back was tired. The mint along the path brushes her arms. Its scent lingers on her sleeves, calming and familiar. Strawberries nod under their leaves. Ellie crouches to pluck a few ripe ones and pops one into her mouth. It tastes warm and sunlit. She pulls a few weeds, ties a drooping cucumber vine to its trellis with soft garden twine. A bee moves past her elbow, slow and certain. In the barn, the broom is right where it always is, leaning beside the grain bin. She sweeps in long strokes. Dust rises and settles again like it knows the pattern. She opens the doors wide to let the fresh air in. Swallows dart through the rafters, dipping in and out of the open space. She pauses now and then, leaning on the broom, listening to the creak of the barn as it shifts in the warming day. The feed bins are full, the tools in their places, everything in quiet order. Halfway through, she pauses to lean against the doorframe. Out in the field, shadows move slowly. The breeze carries the smell of clover. The only sound is a distant bleat from the neighbor's goat. Then the fence. Ellie grabs the gloves from the porch bench and heads down the trail. The fence stretches along the edge of the pasture, gently weathered. She walks slowly, checking each post, her hand brushing the tops of tall grass. A few posts need pressing in. She finds a good rock, tamps the soil, ties one loose bit of wire with a loop of twine she brought in her pocket. It's not hard work, but it's work that feels worth doing. She stops at the corner of the field where a stump acts like a bench. She sits for a minute, watching the light shimmer over the grass. Her breath slows. A rabbit scampers from under the blackberry bramble. Ellie watches it disappear without hurrying it away. By the time she rounds back toward the house, the sun is higher. The light is warmer. The dust on her boots feels earned. On the porch, a plate waits for her. A slice of pear, a wedge of cheese, a few crackers stacked like a quiet reward. Her grandmother isn't in sight, but Ellie feels the care anyway. She sits on the top step, pulls off her boots, and lets her toes feel the wood. A butterfly flits past. The wind chime rings once. Somewhere inside, the radio murmurs low. The smell of apples and cinnamon drips through the screen door. Ellie eats slowly. The world does not need her to rush, and in the slow work of the morning, in fence posts and sweeping, in mint leaves and soft cheese, she feels steadier. Like maybe stillness is something that grows if you tend it right. Chapter 3, Afternoon Drift. The sun shifts overhead, and the world leans quietly into afternoon. Ellie carries the empty plate inside, rinses it without hurry, and leaves it in the drying rack beside a clean teacup and the scent of lemon soap. The kitchen feels different now, still quiet, but filled with the warmth of something completed. Her grandmother has gone to lie down for a while, the soft creak of the bedroom door still echoing faintly in Ellie's ears. With the chores done, the rest of the day stretches out like an open field. Ellie picks up a book from the shelf. a collection of old nature essays, its corners soft and pages yellowed, like pressed leaves and heads for the shade of the big oak behind the barn. The ground there is cool and dappled, patterned with light that dances through the branches. She spreads out a blanket, lies back, and lets her eyes wander across the canopy. Birds hum, the sound of distant bees, the occasional creak of the barn settling into its beams. The words on the page flow gently, nothing urgent, just stories about quiet woods and early mornings. Half an hour passes, maybe more. It's hard to tell. Ellie drifts in and out, not asleep, not fully awake, just floating in that soft space where the world hushes and lets you rest. A breeze stirs her hair. The leaves overhead rustle like whispers. She watches one small cloud shift across the sky, slow and sure. When she sits up again, the sun has moved a little further west. She walks the perimeter of the garden one more time, checks the gate, pulls a weed, picks a small bowl of peas, their pods firm and full. Past the garden, she notices the lavender has started to bloom. She cuts a few stems and ties them together with a bit of twine from her pocket, tucking them gently behind her ear for now. Back inside, the kitchen clock ticks quietly. She sets the peas in a colander, rinses them in cool water, and places them in the fridge for supper. Then she writes a short note and leaves it on the counter. Went for a walk, back soon. The afternoon still has space, and Ellie, barefoot again, heads down the gravel path toward the orchard. Every step soft as the day itself. The apple trees sway slightly in the breeze, branches heavy with green fruit, not quite ready to fall. She walks the row slowly, hand brushing over bark and low limbs. A bird bursts from one of the trees, flapping once, then soaring. At the far edge of the orchard, there's a wooden bench her grandfather built years ago. She settles onto it, her lavender bundle beside her, and sits quietly. In the silence, she hears the hum of bees again, closer now, working the clover near her feet. She breathes in the warm, earthy air, sweet, dusty, alive. Time doesn't press against her ear. It floats with her, and she stays until the shadows grow long and the farm calls her gently home. Chapter 4. Supper light and candle quiet. The kitchen is golden. When Ellie returns, sunlight filters through the curtains, warm and low, casting soft stripes across the table. Her grandmother is humming to herself, a gentle tune that drifts just beneath the clink of cutlery. A pot of soup simmers on the stove, something rich and full, the kind that smells like patience. Did you enjoy your walk? Her grandmother asks, her voice soft but sure. Ellie nods, setting her lavender bundle in a jar by the window. It was nice. The orchard's so quiet this time of day. Best kind of quiet, her grandmother says. The kind that fills you up instead of draining you. They move around the kitchen together, slow, practiced. Ellie sets the table while her grandmother ladles soup into thick ceramic bowls. There's fresh bread on the cutting board, still warm. Butter softening in a dish. A small plate of cucumbers and mint leaves from the garden. A pitcher of water with lemon slices. 2 linen napkins folded at each place. They sit across from each other as the sun slips lower. No television, no background noise, just spoons against bowls, the creak of chairs, and the kind of conversation that doesn't need to fill every moment. How are the tomatoes coming? Her grandmother asks. Almost ready, Ellie replies. Another few days, maybe. Plenty of basil left, her grandmother says. We'll make a salad of it. They eat in a slow rhythm. The soup is earthy lentils and carrots, thyme and a bay leaf that was fished out just before serving. Each bite feels like a pause. Outside, a bird sings once, then is quiet. Inside, the kettle hums again, not for tea just yet, but simply because it always does in the evening. When the meal is done, they clear the dishes together. The water in the sink is warm. The soap smells of rosemary. Ellie dries each dish slowly, stacking them with a soft clink. The sky outside turns lavender, then indigo. The light fades from the windows, replaced by the steady hush of night. Ellie lights a candle on the table, the kind her grandfather used to set out when the power flickered in storms. Its glow is small and steady. They don't speak for a while. The house is full of the hush that comes after something good. Eventually, Ellie leans back in her chair, legs tucked underneath her. I think I'll read a little before bed. Her grandmother smiles. That's a fine way to end a day. I might start the mystery, Ellie adds. The one on the shelf with the flower on the spine. Her grandmother chuckles softly. I remember that one. The garden played a part in the ending. Ellie makes a note to watch for it. Outside, the sky darkens gently as if drawn across in charcoal. Crickets begin to stir. The porch light flicks on with a soft buzz, and inside, the last light comes not from lamps or screens, but from one quiet flame, steady as breath, in a house that knows how to rest. Later, when Ellie goes up to bed, she pauses at the window. The stars are just beginning to show. The whole farm lies still tucked in, breathed out, peaceful. She climbs under the quilt and opens the mystery novel, its spine just as soft as she remembered. And as the candle flickers beside her, Ellie reads the first few pages, her breath slowing with every line. Chapter 5. The Sky Before Breakfast. Ellie wakes early, not to an alarm, not to urgency, just to light. The soft kind that presses gently against the curtain and stretches across her quilt like a quiet hello. She lies there for a moment, listening. The floorboards are still. The kettle hasn't begun its morning sigh. Outside, only the birds are awake, a single call answered by another. She sits up, wraps herself in her cardigan, and pads barefoot to the window. The sky is just beginning to open. Faint streaks of lavender and gold rise behind the hills. The barn roof glows faintly, its edges touched with silver dew. Ellie slips downstairs, careful on the steps. The kitchen is still dark, but the coals in the stove have held a bit of warmth. She adds a log and strikes a match. Soon, the fire crackles softly. She puts the kettle on and moves through the room slowly, lighting a candle, opening the curtains inch by inch. The world outside is waking. She steps onto the porch with her tea, the mug warm in her hands. The sky shifts with every breath she takes. In the garden, mist hugs the soil. The hens have not stirred yet. Even Mabel is still resting, her breath slow and even in the quiet barn. Ellie sits in the old rocker, wrapped in a wool blanket. This is her favorite part of the day, the quiet before everything, the part where nothing asks anything of her yet. She sips her tea and watches the sun climb just enough to tip the tips of the trees with gold. The breeze carries the scent of damp grass and something faintly sweet, maybe honeysuckle. A bird rustles nearby, hopping along the porch rail. She watches it tilt its head, then take off again into the pale light. The porch creaks as she rocks back gently, tea still in hand. The warmth of the mug and the weight of the blanket are enough. Eventually, She rises and walks barefoot down to the garden path. Each step presses dew into the soles of her feet. She checks the tomatoes, still firm but nearly ready. The mint leaves look greener in this light. She plucks a few for later, rubbing one between her fingers. Behind the barn, the wind chime rings soft and hollow. She finds herself smiling without thinking. It's not a big morning, no grand thoughts, just the rhythm of breath and waking. She heads back inside as the kettle whistles. Her grandmother is up now, tying her rope at the waist. "Good morning, love," she says with a yawn. "I see you've already started the day." Ellie nods, setting 2 mugs on the table. "I didn't want to miss the sky." Her grandmother pours the tea. "Well," she says, "you caught the best part." And they sit together in the warm kitchen, sipping slowly as the farm steps gently into its morning. Because some mornings don't begin with doing, they begin with noticing, and that, too, is enough. Chapter 6. Morning moves like butter. After tea, the kitchen begins to stir with purpose. Her grandmother places a pan on the stove, the soft clink of cast iron landing like punctuation in the stillness. Eggs are gathered from the bowl Ellie filled the day before, their shells still speckled with straw. "Let's make a proper breakfast," her grandmother says, tying her apron with practiced hands. Ellie grins and washes her hands at the sink. The water runs clear and cold. They work together in the rhythm of familiarity. Bread is sliced thick. Butter melts in a dish beside the stove. Chives are snipped from the pot near the window. Ellie cracks the eggs. Her grandmother whisks them with milk, a pinch of salt, a slow pour. The scent of melting butter fills the kitchen. The eggs cook gently, low and slow. The bread toasts just enough to turn golden. A small skillet is used to fry the leftover potatoes from yesterday's supper. They hiss as they meet the pan, crisping around the edges. The jam jar is brought out too raspberry from last summer's harvest, placed beside a dish of clotted cream. While the food finishes cooking, Ellie sets the table. 2 plates, 2 mismatched mugs, a small vase with a single sprig of lavender she picked the day before. By the time the plates are full, the whole room smells like care. They sit at the small table again, this time with more sun, more warmth. Mabel lowing softly outside. A soft knock from a hen against the porch step. They eat slowly, not out of tiredness, but because the food deserves it. The cream melts slightly on the toast. The eggs are tender. The potatoes are perfect. A little salt, a little crisp. Ellie runs her finger along the rim of her mug. "I think I'll write today," she says. Her grandmother nods. "There's a quiet hour for everything. Just listen for it." They linger at the table longer than usual, letting the morning stretch. The shadows outside are still short. The light golden. The kitchen clock ticks like a metronome set to calm. After breakfast, they wash the dishes side by side, her grandmother drying, Ellie rinsing. They talk softly about nothing in particular. A new bloom on the rose bush. A memory of Ellie's grandfather building the porch swing. A breeze carries the scent of breakfast out through the screen door. Ellie stops in the doorway for a moment, looking out at the day ahead. Before heading to the field, she detours to the bookshelf in the front room, picking out a slim book of poems and tucking it under her arm with a notebook. Ellie walks out to the field, notebook and book in hand, and finds a spot under the same old tree from the afternoon before. The bark is cool against her back. The sky overhead has brightened. The pages flutter gently in her lap. She watches the clouds pass, thinks of sentences that feel like footsteps, lines that hold the shape of fields. She flips through the book of poems, pausing at one about morning light, about bread and bees, and when her pen touches the paper, the words don't rush. They settle in slowly, softly, just like butter in a warm pan. Chapter 7, Pages and Porch Light. The day unwinds gently. Ellie stays under the tree until the sun shifts westward. She writes in short bursts a few sentences, then a pause to watch a butterfly float past or to press her palm flat to the grass. Her notebook fills slowly, nothing urgent, just thoughts gathered like smooth stones. She scribbles about the way the morning smelled, about the silence between wind gusts, about the warmth of toast with jam. She doesn't worry about making it perfect. Later, she wanders back toward the house, stretching her arms as she walks. In the kitchen, her grandmother is shelling peas into a large bowl. The radio plays softly, a folk song with a fiddle that sounds like wind. Good words? Her grandmother asks without looking up. Quiet ones, Ellie says. They make a light lunch cold chicken from the night before, cucumbers with vinegar and salt, and slices of peach with honey. They eat at the table with the door open, letting the breeze move through the room. The scent of mint from the windowsill plant mixes with the warmth of the food. Afterward, the heat settles in. Ellie reads for a while on the porch, her legs stretched out, a second pillow behind her back. The book isn't fast, it meanders, like the afternoon itself. The pages feel warm beneath her fingertip. A bee buzzes lazily nearby, then drifts off. When the sun softens and the shadows grow long, she helps her grandmother collect the laundry from the line. Sheets and pillowcases flutter in the breeze. They fold them right there in the yard, sunlight clinging to the fabric. Ellie presses one folded sheet to her face, breathing in the scent of sun and soap. Supper is quiet again. Leftover soup with fresh herbs, a crusty heel of bread, slices of ripe tomato. They don't talk much, just sit with the clink of spoons, the hush of a house that holds them. As dusk settles, Ellie lights the porch lantern. Moths begin to gather near the glow. She writes a little more in her notebook. A small poem, a sentence about peaches, a list of things she saw, a spider web in the raspberry patch, a feather near the barn, a bird that sang and didn't stop. She writes about how the air changes after supper, how the porch feels different when the stars begin to show. When the sky turns deep blue, she closes the notebook and leans back. The porch creaks beneath her. Crickets sing. The last of the warmth clings to the wooden rails. A dog barks once, far off, then nothing. She pulls a blanket over her knees and rocks gently in the chair. And in the hush that follows a full day not busy, just full Ellie breathes in, slow and deep. Tomorrow will come. The garden will call. The tea will steep. But for now, the only thing she needs to do is sit in the porch light and let the quiet do its work. Chapter 8. The Shape of Stillness. Ellie wakes again before the sun. There's no urgency, just that quiet pull, the one that brings her to the window to see the first blush of morning in the sky. The hills are velvet dark, but their edges are silvery. A line of cloud turns faintly coral. Somewhere in the trees, a bird tries out its first note. She moves through the house silently, down the stair, through the kitchen, out to the porch. Her cardigan waits by the door. She wraps herself in it and steps into the dawn. The air is cool, the kind of cool that lives just between night and day. She walks barefoot down to the garden. The mint glows with dew. A spider web stretches between two stakes, catching the pale light. Mabel stirs in her stall, but doesn't rise. Ellie stands for a long time with her hands in her pockets. She doesn't need to be anywhere, doesn't need to do anything just yet. This is a moment made only of stillness, and it feels like it belongs to her. She moves to the porch swing and sits gently, letting it sway. The chains creak softly. The bird song begins to build, not loud, just layered. A harmony of waking. From here, she can see the sun finally crest the ridge. Light spills across the tops of the trees and slides down the hillsides like honey. By the time her grandmother wakes, Ellie has already started the tea. The kitchen fills with the soft steam of water warming. 2 mugs are placed on the table. Honey is drizzled into one. A slice of lemon floats in the other. They sit together without talking. Ellie looks out the window, a notebook close beside her. She doesn't need to write anything down this morning. She already feels it. What stillness can be. Not silence, not absence, but presence, steady, soft, and full. After tea, they make breakfast together. Nothing fancy. Toast with butter. A handful of strawberries from the garden. The last scoop of peach preserves. They talk a little while they eat about the tomatoes, about the weather, about how full the moon will be tonight. When breakfast is done and the dishes are rinsed, Ellie walks out to the porch again. The farm is fully awake now. Bees, breeze, and the distant sound of a tractor on a neighbor's field. But the calm hasn't left. It lives in her now, as much as it lives in the soil or the sky. She leans against the porch rail, her fingers trailing along the wood grain. Behind her, the wind chime sounds once a soft note like punctuation. She breathes in, presses her palm to the doorframe, and smiles. This summer has shown her something she didn't expect. Not how to do more, but how to be still, how to move gently, how to let small things matter, and how much that, in its own quiet way, can hold the whole shape of a life.